Now, this is a crazy video to make on Pride Month of all months. But here is UFC referee John McCarthy casually accusing Jon Jones of sexual misconduct against a UFC commissioner. Now, if you haven't seen this video, I'm sure you'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? So the gentleman to my right over here, John McCarthy, he is one of the more renowned referees here in the UFC and in mixed martial arts in general. And what he says so casually, it just boggles your mind. And I'm not gonna waste any more time. You know what? I'll just let John McCarthy play. Uh, say what he has to say.
He's, bouncing around, he's having a good time. And he said, I got a question for you. I said, yeah, what's your question? And he says, I need somebody. And there's an individual there, and that individual was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and was working for the commission. And he says, is someone getting on the ground for me, right? And so this guy, being a ground guy and being someone that was, man, I'm in Jon Jones's locker room. This is great. And so he says, oh, I'll do it for you. He says, I know how to roll. And so he goes down. He says, just, put me in guard, right? And then Jon decides to do a sexual act with him.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
John McCarthy just casually accuses Jon Jones of sexual misconduct against a UFC commissioner by demonstrating a move to John McCarthy and asking him whether or not this move is legal. Ah, hell no. This guy's the P. Diddy of mixed martial arts. And before I get any hate comments about, oh, I'm just hating on Jon Jones, I'll be real. I think Jon Jones is gay, but that's not what I'm attacking him for. Right? If anything, I think it's pretty cool that one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time can to take it up with the butt from time to time. But my problem with Jon Jones is that he's not just gay. He is literally diddling people who are not really into him that way. A lot of people did look up to Jon Jones. He's like, oh, he's the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. But here's Jon Jones abusing that fact and trying to perform some depraved actions against his fans or people who are working with him. And I find that pretty disgusting. All right, we're gonna let John McCarthy explain further about the situation though, just to make sure that we heard that correctly.
Saying, what if I do this? Right? This isn't illegal, right? And the guy who was on the ground, quickly his eyes went, as big as they could get. Like, what are you doing? And I said, John, knock it off, right? And I helped the person up, and he goes, I'm just joking. And he goes, but really, what could you do? I said, I could disqualify you for being unsportsmanlike. Go ahead and do it. Let's see what happens. This is why John and I never really got along.
Yeah, of course. John McCarthy and Jon Jones, they never got along, John McCarthy, he's a no-nonsense man, He don't put up with sexual assault against UFC commissioners, man. He really put his foot down on that one. I don't know. The fact that he's just bringing this up years after this happened, because I'm assuming, because let's be honest, the last time Jon Jones has fought was in 2024. And even before then, it's been what? He's fought on a work schedule of Santa Claus, essentially. So I don't think this was recent. If anything, it probably happened like a few years at least. Probably during Jon Jones's prime in the early 2010s. But the fact that John McCarthy is now bringing this up, I don't know why he chose to bring it up now. I feel like if Jon Jones were exposed to this a lot earlier, we wouldn't have to come up with all these conspiracy theories. But here we are in 2025, and I guess in a way, John McCarthy, at least you came out with the truth now, because this is truly disturbing stuff. It really is. What I want to break down from this video is just, this is not the only case that Jon Jones had. If this were a one-off thing, then you'll be like, all right, this dude's a little bit quirky, or something along those lines. He's a little bit zesty, if you will. But no, there are other cases of this. Take, for example, this guy named Def Noodles. Now, Def Noodles is a comedian, I believe, out in Las Vegas. Actually, no, not Las Vegas, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he details his experience with Jon Jones at his comedy club while Def Noodles was taking stage. And I'm just gonna let Def Noodles explain his experience with Jon Jones.
Was observing, and John had his arm around his girl, right? Who had, I guess, like a New Zealand type accent, but he was reaching over to a comic who was sitting there next to his girl, and he was touching him in ways that were not appropriate. And I was surprised because the comic is bi. So he was like trying to move John's hands out of the way, but John like kept reaching over. And that's why I mentioned what I said on stage. When I got up on stage eventually, I said, well, you know, it seems like you're touching Mike. That's his name. You don't fuck Mike. Mike fucks you, you know?
Wow. This not only confirms that Jon Jones is gay. I know, like, all these Jon Jones fans, they're out here coping, like, oh no, you guys are just hating on the GOAT. No, there are other legitimate reasons to hate on Jon Jones. Jon Jones being closeted is not exactly a defining reason.
You fucking cracker! I fucking other prison fucking officers. I fucking hate you. I hate you.
It's the fact that Jon Jones has L Riz. You know, he's out here casually sexually assaulting people, and he's doing it in a very uncomfortable manner, a Diddy style, if you will. So I think that's a problem. And the fact that the UFC, because I'm assuming cases like this have happened more than once, the fact that the UFC has done their best to keep quiet about this situation, and it took John McCarthy what, 8 years after the event to come out and say something about this, really tells me that there's something going on in the UFC, and I think it starts with Jon Jones and Dana White. There are a lot of memes about how Jon Jones and Dana White are secretly gay lovers, but at first you could say it's a conspiracy, but now there is solid evidence. Or at least there's like one end of the spectrum where like he's like, "Oh, that Jon Jones might see it that way." So I'm gonna say this: Jon Jones. Again, I'm not attacking him because he's gay, right? It's Pride Month. We're inclusive in this channel. I'm attacking him because this dude got L Riz, and he's quite frankly a menace to society. And the sooner we get rid of Jon Jones, the better the sport of mixed martial arts would be. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you guys haven't noticed, I changed my setup, and I think this looks a lot better than before. So leave a comment down below if you appreciate that. But other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. Uh, predictions for UFC 316 are coming out pretty soon, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.